Hello developers, how are you? I trust you're doing fine. So welcome to this video. We'll be building our third application, that is the drum machine, and I hope you'll enjoy it. So stay tuned. So if you're following this course, you know that before any app, we always push some code in a GitHub repository. So if you are following this course, you know that repo, you can just use the git pull command to pull the codes. And if you are new, I'll attach the link to that repository in the video description. So if you pull the changes, you'll notice that there is this new folder that will be there called the drum app, and that folder has another folder that has sounds. This folder just contains sounds because this is a drum machine. We'll be playing some sounds like this one. Those are the songs that we'll be playing. Then there's a background image, that image. Then there's our HTML. Then there's also JavaScript that is empty, and there's a readme file there and a CSS file there. So that is the thing that you'll find if you pull the changes. So if you look at this HTML, you can see the headers, the title, the link to CSS, and the link to some font awesome. This font awesome will give us the icons that we'll use in this CSS in this file. So the body has a div that has a class of keys and contains the keys for our keyboards that will be clicking. Then it will be playing some sound. Then you can see we use this data key attribute. So data key attribute is a self-made attribute. So this is part of the data dash attributes that HTML introduced. So someone can just create their own attribute as long as they start with data then dash. So I created this data dash key attribute and gave this value of 65. So every letter in HTML is associated to a specific number in the ASCII table. So you look at that just in a few moments. Let me just finish explaining this HTML code. Then you look at various letters and their ASCII numbers in the ASCII chart. And there's also a website that gives us an easier way to find out the ASCII code. So these are those letters, those keyboard letters, and they are attached to a specific sound. So those are the letters. Then below there's also the audios. So the audios are the ones that are in this folder called sounds. These audios are here. So every audio also has this data key attribute, and you can see that this data key attribute of this first audio corresponds to this data key attribute of the A. They have the same value. So data key 65 for A, and that audio is clap. The audio for A is clap. So this audio here for clap, you can see the source is clap.wav. It has this data key of 65 so that it can match with the key of A. And we'll see how we link this audio to that button or that key in a few moments. And you also notice that this audio does not have the controls attribute. And when learning about HTML, we said that if you don't provide the controls attribute for the audio, it won't be visible in the user interface. And for this app, we don't want to see the audio because we'll be playing them without having to use the controls. Because we'll be adding event listeners to these keys. Then when each key is clicked, we'll be playing the corresponding audio. Also, there's this input here, an input of type range, and this input will be used to adjust the volume of our sounds. So we'll be able to control the volumes of the sounds by ourselves using this input here. And if you see there's a record button here, we'll use this button to record our sounds. So when someone clicks the sounds, we'll have a functionality to record the played sound. Then later you can see there's this button for playing. So this button will be used to play the recorded sound. Then there's this button for clear that will be used to clear the recorded sound. So that is the HTML. And there's a script tag here to link to our JavaScript, JavaScript is currently empty. So maybe look at this CSS. So if you look at this CSS, just add the background color for the background image in the HTML using this URL function there. Then in each key is a flex container, roughly a flex container, and it's aligned at the center and justified at the center, and just a flex grow of 1. Then each key also, this one is keys, all of them. The class that is surrounding each key. This general class for surrounding each key, it's a flex container, and each individual keys are flex child. So each individual key has a border of solid and color black, and also has a border radius, and each key has a transition of 0.07 seconds and a transition function of is. You can see it there, and the key is transitioning using this transform. So when it is playing, we'll add this playing class later. When this class is added, the key will scale to 1.1, then the border color will change to yellow, and the box shadow will also change to yellow, this shade of yellow. And that will happen using this transition. We'll see that in action when you start running the code. Then each keyboard is a display block. The sounds are in uppercase, letter spacing, color, the controls, flex direction column. So you can see those styles are there. So for the volume control, it's there. For the record button, for the play button, and for the clear button, they are there, all of them. So that is basically our code that was pushed, and you can see the JavaScript is empty, and we'll write all the JavaScript ourselves. So before we start writing any code, let's first see how the app looks like, then we can write our code. Basically, this is how the app looks like. This is the background image I was telling you about. Then these are the keys, just A to L, and each letter or each key is associated to a sound. The name of the sound is written there below. So A is clap, S is hit touch, that way till you get L is pink. Then this is the input I was telling you about, where we'll be adjusting the volume. So when it's full volume, it will produce a lot of sound. When it's medium, at least, then the sound is low, it should not produce any sound. Currently it's not working, but we'll make it to work. Then this is the record button, and when someone clicks it, then plays the sound, it should be able to keep track of the button that has been clicked. Then later when someone clicks play, it should be able to play back the recorded sound without someone clicking the buttons. Then when you clear, it should be able to clear the recording. And that is basically how the app should function. So that much ado, let's go back to our VS Code and start writing the code. So as usual, before starting our code, first we have to have an algorithm, and we said that an algorithm is a step-by-step procedure that will guide us in the app. So I'll create my algo.md there, then I'll paste my algorithm because I already had it. So I'll just read it to you slowly. So the first thing will be, that is it. Let me just open it with the Markdown preview here, and I can just close this file, and close this Explorer so that there can be some space. So yeah, this is the thing that I was speaking about. The first thing that you'll do will declare the variables, and some of the variables that you want are this one that will get them from the HTML using the get element by ID or class name, depending if it's an ID or a class. Then you listen for events, and some of the events that we will be listening to is the click event, especially for buttons. When someone clicks a button, we want to play a certain sound, so we listen for that. No, that will be key down event, not click, because someone is pressing it in the keyboard, not in the window object. So it will listen for the key up event, and when that event is being triggered, we'll call this function called handle press key function. So that is the function that will define. Then we will add the class playing so that it can have it can show that it's being clicked, so that it can be differentiated from the other class. Then later, after it has finished, when someone presses another button, we want to remove this class for playing first in the button that was clicked initially before you add another to each another button. That will be the next step, to remove the transition function, to remove the playing class. Then by that, we'll have completed our first task for playing the audios using the keys. Then the next task is to make the volume input to work. The thing for adding and releasing volume will make that thing to work. Then the next thing will be to make our recording to work and also make this clear recording to work. Then the last thing that we'll do in this app is to make the play recording to work. Then by that we'll be finished all the things that we require for this application. So without much ado, let's first start writing our JavaScript code. Before we start coding, I promise that I'll show you some ASCII codes. So I'm in this website called geeksforgeeks.org, then /ASCII table. I find this website very good. I'll use it mostly for learning, so I can recommend it. So you can see here the ASCII code for the A character is 65, for B is 66. So this is the thing that I was telling you that I was using it for the data dash key value. I was getting this for the ASCII code of A, and I'm using that value for 65 that way. Also, there's this website that I can also recommend for you to know if you want to learn more about these codes. It's called keycode.info. That website there. So this is it's called JavaScript key code. So if you press any key, you get the JavaScript event code information. So if I press A, you can say get key code information is 65, S 83, D. So you can use those websites to check for the code of every letter in the keyboard, and that information is useful in this application because we'll be using this information to link the key that is clicked to the audio that will be played. So now that we have that general idea, and another thing to remind you about the data dash key. Data dash key are just data attributes in HTML, and I tell you that they are introduced to make people have their own attributes, because it reached a place where people were just creating their own attributes, and the developers in HTML decided to introduce this data dash key attributes, not data dash key, data dash attributes. So you can say data dash then any name. Like in the previous video, we used data dash answer. If you remember the previous video, we used data dash answer, and I told you to access that data dash attribute in the JavaScript, use dataset, the dataset property. But that was for last video. This video will not use that dataset property, but I want you to have an idea about the data dash attributes in HTML and how they are accessed in JavaScript. So that much I do not. Let's go to our HTML code and we start writing the code. Now that we have the basic idea of how the app should work, we can now start writing our JavaScript code. So the first thing that we'll do, we'll listen for the keydown event. When someone presses a specific key in the keyboard, we want to call a specific audio, but I'll take it step by step. So first, I'll add event listener to the window object. I believe by now you know about the window object. So I'll say window.add event listener, and I'll listen for the keydown event. When someone presses a key, that will be a keydown event. So when that event is pressed, I'll call the handle key press function, which is not yet created, but we'll create it. So I'll call handle key press. So now I'll just create that function. When someone presses a key, I'll use an arrow function syntax. So I'll say const handle key press is equals to an arrow function. So when someone presses a key, there's that event for pressing that key. Maybe you can log that event so that you can see what that event entails. So I'll take this event as a parameter there, then I'll log it so that you can see what that event is. I'll log that event, so you can go to the browser and see what this event is and what it is all about. So let's go to the browser and see. So if you go to the browser, let me open my developer options here, and I go to the console. See, and I refresh, and I press a key. You can see it's called a keyboard event. That's the event, and if I maximize that object, you can see there's this like is trusted, true, key is A, code A, whatever. There's a lot of information there, but the one that we're interested in is this one called key code. There's this key code, and it's 65, the one that I was showing you initially, the ASCII code. In this event, it's called the key code. So for us to access this 65, you can say something like e.keycode. I think that is clear. So you can just go there and access that. Let's go back to our code and access this e.key code. So if you access e.key code of any key that is clicked, for example, if I click, that one was A. If I click something like F, you can see its key code will be different. F is 70. So every key that you press has a specific key code. So now that you've gotten that key code, now you can compare the audio element that is being that the key that is being clicked to the audio element that will be played. So let's go back to our code and do that. Now that you are aware that the key that is clicked is e.key code, so I can, instead of logging it and to assign it to a variable, I'll say const, I'll call that variable key, and I'll assign it to that e.key code that you have seen. It's capital C, e.key code, like that. Yeah. Now that you have the key, we can get the audio element that is associated to that key. Like I told you in my HTML here, let's say this A is 65. We have already seen that how A is 65. Then if I want this clap to be played, I also made the audio clap to have this data key of 65. So if I press A, you can see the 65 is linked to the key and to the audio. So I think that is easier now. So if I come to my JavaScript and to play a specific audio, I can just play the audio that has that key code. I think it's clear. So let me first get the audio. I'll call it audio, const audio. I'll use query selector. Then I'll get the audio. And you can use the attribute selector like they use them in HTML. In CSS, you see that attribute selector have these square brackets. So I want to get the audio whose data dash key value is equals to my key code. So if it's A, it will be equal to 65. If it's B, it will be equal to 66, like that. So, and how do you get this value? I've said that you get that value from this key here. So I can just use the backticks that we learned. I can use the backticks here and put my variable here, like that. Key. So what I've done here, I have selected the audio that has the data key attribute that is equal to the button that has been clicked. So if I click A, the audio attribute that will be selected is this one for A, this one. And if I click B, this one. If I click S, this one is the one that will be selected. So instead of talking about theory, let's log the audio element and confirm if it's true. So I'll just log that audio element that has been selected, and you can go to the browser to check if it's the actual element that you want. So let's go to the browser and see the audio element that is being logged. So if you go back to the browser and I click A, not there, here in the window object, I click A, you can see this audio element is one that has been selected, and the audio element has this key of 65. So meaning now I have linked a specific key to one audio. So if I press something like F, you can see the audio is 70. S, it's 83. So you can see it's changing depending on the audio that I click. That is the thing that you wanted. If you click, let's say if I click A, if I refresh, I click A and to play the audio with data key 65, because I've seen that A, the ASCII code of A is 65, and you get that code from the e.key code. I think that is clear. So now that you have the audio, you can play it using the play method of the audio element. So let's go back to our code and do that. So instead of logging the audio, we want to play it. So you'll say something like audio, then you call the play method of the audio element, like that, audio.play. So now it will take that audio and we'll play it. So you can confirm that in the browser. So if now I press like A, I think you can hear the sound that is playing. Different sound is played when I press S, D, F, G, H. Until now it's working. But now the problem is, let me inspect, I show you something. The problem is if I press something that is not there, like E, you can see there's an error because there's no audio that has letter E. The audios that are there in my HTML is only the ones that are present here: A, S, D, F, G, H, J, K, and L. So if I press any other key in the keyboard, it will look for that audio with that key code and it will not find it, and that will be an error. So to prevent that error, before playing the audio, you can check if the audio exists, and if it does not exist, you can stop our function from running. Then if it exists, you can now play the audio. So you can do that now. So before playing this audio, first you have to check if the audio is there. So I'll say if the audio is there, you can play it, or you can do the reverse engineering. You can say if audio is not there, stop. So that is done. I'll say if audio is not there, if not audio, return. To mean stop the function from running, like that. And I tell you, if an if statement is one line, you can just make it in one line like that. Then that is even better. So if there is no audio, it will stop the function from running, and if the audio is there, it will continue and run. I think that is fine. So you can go to our browser and confirm that there's no errors when I click another key. So now if I go to the browser and I click the normal letters, you can see they're playing. If I click something like R that is not there, you can see it's not playing and there's no error in the console. Initially, when I clicked a button that was not there was an error complaining about an null audio element. But now, since when the letter is not there, it's not calling the play method. Now you don't get that error. I think that is what we wanted. So our code is fine till there. But now there's another bug. If I press a key multiple times, like you can see I've pressed it like 5 times, but it has played 2 times. That is because when you press a key, it plays the audio from start to finish. Until it has finished is when it can start again. That is we don't want that to be how the app should work. We want the app, when someone clicks multiple times, where it has reached playing before someone clicks it again, it should stop there and restart. That is what we want. So if I click, it should ring, it should play as many times as I click. So if you want to do that functionality, you can go back to our code and change a little bit. So let's go back to our code. So before you play the audio, you want to ensure that the audio has started. It's starting before it plays. So you can do that by saying audio.current_time and set the current time to 0, so that it starts from 0, then it plays. So current time is equals to 0. So the output of this code is just to restart the audio. So yeah, we can go back to our browser and confirm that if I click an element a lot of times, it will play as many times as I click it. So let's go back to our browser and confirm that. So now when I press you can hear my keys are still playing, but now if I press them multiple times, I think you can hear it plays as many times as I click it. So even if it has not finished playing, it stops where it has reached and it starts again and plays again. So that is what we wanted, and I think we are moving fine. So now we want, when I click this button A, and someone to know that this is the button that has been clicked, not any other button. And you can do that by adding the playing class that I showed you initially. The playing class will add a border of yellow and it will increase this class a little bit. So you can do that in this. Next, we can go to our code and do that. Let's do that first. So we want to add the playing class to the key that is being played. So first you have to get the actual key that is being played. So to get the actual key, like you can see in the HTML, the keys are here. They have the class of key, and they have this data dash attribute. So you can use the same idea, the way you selected audio. To know the audio that has been clicked, you can use the same criteria to know which button has been clicked. We can use the same criteria. So I'll just copy this code and paste it below there. Then instead of saying audio, I can say that is a key element that has been clicked. So instead of saying audio here also, I can say it has a class of key, and also it has a data key attribute of the key that has been clicked. I think that is in order, or you can just log it to confirm that is the actual key that you want. So I can just log that key element. So let's go to the browser and see which key element is being is being selected when someone clicks a certain button. So I can go to the browser and confirm that. So if I open my developer options here, I can open my developer options and go to the console. So if let me refresh first. So if I press something like H, you can see the actual element that is being logged is the A button. So I want, when that button has been clicked, and to add I can't edit here. Can I edit? No, I can't. I want to add a playing class like this. Where is it? Class. If I can edit this one, I can show you. Yeah, it has been edited. So I want to add a class of playing like that to this element to show that it is playing. And if it is playing, it will look something like that. I think that is what I want to do. So you have seen that if I click A is the actual element that will be selected. If I click S is the one that will be logged. So now the element that is being clicked is the one that you are getting it. So we can add a class to that element, the class of playing to that element. So let us do that. So to add a class is just simple. We already know this. It's like you select the elements that you want to add the class, then use the class list, then you say dot add. Then you say the class that you want to add. In this case, you want to add this class is called playing. And what this playing does, I think I showed you before. This is the actual class of playing. Where is it? It's up here. It scales the button a little bit, then it adds this yellow border and this yellow box shadow. That's the only thing that this playing does. But it does that with a transition of 0.07 second, and it follows the is transition timing function. I think we talked about all this in CSS, so we're all aware of that. So that is the class that you're adding. So you can go to a browser and check how that is when you add that class. So now when I click a button like S, you can see that class is being applied. If I click F, you can see that class is being applied. But the problem is you are applying that class, but you are not removing it. So now we want to remove this class, but it has been applied, we want to remove it so that it can just come like that. Then after it has finished playing, it goes back to how it was before. So let's do that in this next thing. So to remove that class, you cannot remove it like this. That will not work. If you say class.remove, this is how we remove a class. But if you remove it immediately after adding it, it will not be seen. You can just run that and you can see it will not work. So that is not the thing that is not how you can add it. Someone might say maybe you can use the set timeout function that you learned. Yeah, you can use that, but you have to follow this transition time that is set here. So if it's 0.07 seconds, you have to run your function for that specific time. But that will not be dynamic, because if someone changes this time here, you'll have to change your code here. But that is not something that you want to do. The easiest way that I found is by listening to an event, and that event is called transition end. So since when you add this playing class, it transitions. So we first wait for it to finish transitioning. We want this after it has finished to transform is when you want to remove the class. So listen for this transform. We'll wait for the transition to end, and specifically the transform one. Let me write it so that you can flow with it. So we listen for that transition event for it to end, then specifically we wait for the transform one to end. So let us go to our code and add the event. So those events are listened in the key. So here I'll say const. I'll get the keys first. So I'll say const keys, because they are mine. I'll use keys. And I'll use query selector all. And you can see all my keys in the XML. All of them have this class called key. All of them have this class called key. So if I select here that has a class of key, there'll be, and I have to say dot key because it's a class of key. And this is a query selector, not a class, not to get element by class name. So I have to add this dot. And we have seen from the previous video that this one will return a node list. For let us maintain this top part here. Let's maintain this top part here to be for our variables. Then this middle part here to be for our functions. Then the bottom part to be for event listeners. Let's maintain the structure so that you cannot congest our code. So this down part here will be for event listeners. This one. So this since it's a variable, I'll move it on top there. So it's not a must, but it's good practice for you to arrange your code well, so that when you're looking for a certain thing, you'll not go everywhere in that code and look for it. So yeah, since I have the key there, you have said that if you use the for the selector all, you get a node list. And a node list, you have seen in the previous video that node list you can use the for each to loop through each element of that node list. So here you can add my event list. I'll say keys, but for each key. So for each key, what do you want to do? And for each key, you add event listener. So let's say key dot add event listener. And you have said you're listening for this event called transition end. When the transition ends, and when that event triggers, going to call this function called remove transition. We don't have it yet, but we are ready to create it. So I'll create below this. Let's say const remove transition is equals to an arrow function like that, and we'll take the event as usual. First, let us log the event so you can see how the event is. Let us log it. So we'll take the event and then let us log it. So I'll say here E. Then we can log it. Yeah, to see how what it contains. Log. So let's go to the browser and see what this E is. So let's go to the browser. So if you go to the browser and open your developer options and go to the console, you see nothing. So when I click on it, if you click a key, like say I click F, so you can see this is a you're still logging this. I forgot to remove this. We'll remove it. This log for the actual element will remove this key element. I forgot to remove the logs. We'll go back and remove it. But what you are interested in this, you're interested in this event. So if I click a key, there's this one called transition event, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 transitions occurring at the same time, because keep in mind that we changed there, and yeah, they have. Let me expand this so that you can see it well. So you can see they have the property. There's this thing called property name, and this property name tells us which property is being changed. So you can see is this border bottom color, then is border left, this one is border right, this one is border left, border right, border top, then this one is box shadow. But the one that we're interested in is this one, transform. This is the one that we're interested in, but all of them take 0.07 seconds for them so that they can elapse. That is how we set them in the CSS, and that is why I stressed and told you about these things earlier, so that if you come here you can get an easy time. So the one that we're interested in is this one, transition, this one for transform. So if the transform is over, we want to remove that plain class so that it can go back to its initial position where it was before it was clicked. So let's go to our code and do that. First I'll remove this log, and so that our console can be clear. So first let me remove this log here. I forgot to remove it. Let me remove this log here. Yeah, there should not be a log there. Let me save that code. Then in our remove transition, we want to remove the plain class. But first, we want to check if the transform property is, if the transition property is transform. I think I'm clear. So I'll say if you see it's E. It was in thing called property name. I think you all saw it. So I'll say e.property name, and the property name was transform. So if the property name is transform, we want to remove the class. Or you can do the reverse engineering. We say if it's not transform, so I can add a note there. If the property name is not transform, we can stop a function from running. So you can say return. Stop there. If it is not transform, stop there. But if it is transform, we can say this. We can say the actual key. Then you want to remove the class list. But to get the actual key, you have to use the this keyword. So the this keyword is I don't know. I found a little. Let me log it so that can go. Let me log it. And in the last video, I told you if you use an arrow function, the value of this is different, and when you use a normal function, the value of this is different. Because if you use an arrow function, it will reference to the window object. But if you use the normal function, it will reference to the actual element that has called this function. So I'm not interested with the window object. I think we saw that, or I can just show you again. This is an arrow function, so I'm logging this. So it should log the window object. So let's go to our browser and see that this will be the window object. So if you go to your browser and open the developer options and go to the console, then if you click a button, let's say I click something like F, you can see it logs the window object. So the value of this in this context is the window object. There's too much this. I think you get it. Since I'm using an arrow function, this keyword will reference to the window object. So let us go to our code and change the function to a normal function, and you can see that you can see the value of this will change. So let's go back to our code and do that. So back to our code, instead of using an arrow function, I'll just remove this arrow here so that I can return it to a normal function. Then I'll remove this is equal sign. Then I'll remove this const and replace it with the keyword function. So this is a normal function. So you can keep in mind that I didn't touch the function body. I didn't touch it, but I just changed the function from the arrow function to the normal function. So let's go to the browser and see the value of this and see how the value of this will change. So let's go there to the browser and confirm that. Back to the browser, if I click any letter like say F, you can see now it's logging. The value of this is the actual key that was clicked. That is why we are using the normal function instead of using the arrow function, so that you can get the actual key that was clicked. Now that we're getting this key, you can now remove this class of playing from this key. So let us do that. Just one line of code. So instead of logging this, I can say this. Now in this context, this means the key element that has been clicked dot class list dot remove. Since you want to remove that class, I'll say dot remove, and the name of the class is playing. Okay, got the spelling right. So this in this context refers to the element that has been clicked, and I've already proved that. So I'll remove that class of playing. So let's go to the browser and see how that is. So if you got the browser, we don't need this console because you're not doing anything at the console. So if I place something like D, so you can see the class is being added, then it's being removed. Maybe let me just go to the console and show you how that is happening. Let me just go to the elements here. Where are the elements? Yeah, these are the elements. These are the audio elements and these keys. Yeah, these are the elements. So you can see currently just the class key alone, but if I press it, you can see the class playing is being added, then it's being removed. I think you can see that. But that thing is very quick. You can see it's very quick. That is what we wanted. The class playing is being added and removed at the same time when someone clicks a button. Let's say I click something like F. You can see the class is being added, then it's being removed. So our keyboard is now doing fine. I think that's a good user experience. So someone can. So the next thing that you want to do is to make this work. Currently it's not working because if I remove the volume and I still click, you can see it's still removing. The sound is still there. So you don't want that thing to happen, not even if the if someone reduces the volume, I want it to the volume to be down. So let us make this thing to happen. That is our next task. So let's go to the browser, to the code, and do that. So to make the volume to work, first we have to get the actual element. So I'll go to that element and see it was named, it has an ID of volume control. So I'll just copy that ID. Then I'll come here in my JavaScript and I'll create a variable. So I'll say that the variable will be on top there. So I'll create my variable here on top and say const that. Then I'll use get element by ID. And I'll paste the ID there. So now I have my volume control button. It's there. So the next thing that I can add is I can add an event listener to that input. So I found out that there are two events that can work with this. So I'll show you all of them, but I'll show you which one I prefer. So the one of them is this one called input. There's an event called input. Yeah. So in that changes, you want to do something like adjust. I want to call this function called adjust. I missed the spelling. Adjust volume. So you can create that function below here. You can say const adjust volume is equals to an arrow function that, yeah. So after when that event is triggered, we'll call this function called adjust volume. And we want what this function will do, we want to reduce the volume. So we can just get the audio elements first, because we want to reduce the volume of those audio elements, because the audio elements are the ones that have a sound. So I'll get those audio elements. I'll say const audio elements, or I'll just call them audio elements to be audio, because there's already a variable called audio. So I'll call them audio elements like that. And I'll use query selector, say document dot query selector, because I want to loop through them. So I want it to be a node list. So I'll say query selector all audio. I'll use the element name to select them. So audio like that. Then I'll loop through them. So I'll say audio elements dot for each. So for each audio, I want to reduce the volume. So I'll say audio like that. And I'll say each audio has an attribute called volume. So I'll say audio dot volume. So I want the value of the volume of the audio to be equal to the value of that I selected there. So if you remember in HTML, we said that all input elements have type, leave alone the type. And if you remember when I talked about these inputs, I said that mostly the most common things that you'll use for inputs is the name and the value. And the name is mostly used for the backend, and the value is the actual value of that input. So when I drag that range, you see it's a range, so you drag it either increase or decrease. So if I drag it, this value changes. So I want that value that is where I've stopped dragging, that actual value, I want that value to be the volume of that audio. So I'll say something like volume element. I call it volume control or volume elements. What do I call it? Volume control dot value. So this means that the value of that volume control will, let's first log this value first. Let's log it so that you can see what I'm talking about. Let's log this value. So I'll say console.log. Let's log that value so that you can see what value I'm talking about. So let's load the browser and see what that value is. So if you go to the browser, you can open the developer options. And you can go to the console. Then as you have added the event listener to this input, so if I change this input and to log the value, so if I change this input like this, you can see every time I move this range, the values are being logged there. If I move it to 0, you can see the volume will be 0. If I try to increase the range, you can see the volume is increasing, and the maximum is 1. So that is how you, that's this when someone reduces this volume or increases it, this will be the value of the volume of that audio. Then I remember telling you that there are two events that I noticed that they worked. One of them is input, and you can see input, how input works. So the other one was called change. That's how change is and why input is better than change. So let me change the event listener to change. There's too much changes, but yeah. So instead of listening to the input event, we can listen to the change event. It also works, but you can see which one is better in a few moments. So if I think I did it wrong. Yeah, I think it's fine there. So if I run the input to change, let's go to the browser and see how this change behaves. So if you go back to our developer options and I click here, you can see it displays 0.7. You can see also change works. But the difference of input to change is that when I drag this, when I drag like that, you can see it does nothing. Until I leave my mouse is when it will take effect. That is how change works. So I found that if you listen for the input, when someone drags, input changes as someone drags. But for this change, someone has to mouse up. It's called, that event is called when someone has to leave the mouse so that can take place. Or you have to click there isn't to, so that it can reflect. But for input, even if someone is dragging the mouse this way, it will be displaying. I think you saw that in input. When I drag this, it was displaying even without me leaving the mouse. But for change, you have to leave the mouse first before it logs the value. So I think, according to me, everyone has their own preference, but according to me, I believe that input has good user experience than change. So you can use the one that you prefer, but I'll use input. So I'll go back and change it to input. So let's go back to our code. So I believe I've convinced all of you that input is the best option, but even if you are not convinced, that is fine. You can still use change, but I'll use input. So you have already seen that this value, it logs correctly. So instead of logging it, we need to assign it to that value of audio.volume. So I can say audio.volume. Audio.volume is equals to that volume control dot value. So I believe that everyone is at par. So you can go to the browser and confirm that. Let me first save my code. Okay, I think it's saved. So let's go to the browser and see that the volume is now working. So if I go to the browser, you can see the volume is full. So if I click an element, the volume will be full volume. So I'll move it to half or there. So if now you click, you can see the sound has reduced. It's not full volume yet. And if I move it to 0, you can see it's playing, but there's no sound. There's no sound that is coming out. So if the volume is 0, the element will play, but it will not produce any sound. That means that our volume is working. So our next task is to do this for recording. So let us implement this for recording. This is our next task. So the easiest way that I found to make this recording work is to store the clicked elements into an array. That was the easiest way that I did. So that is the one that will do that. So first you have to get that. Where is it? You have to get this button here. It has an ID of record button. So I'll get that element first. So here in my variables, I'll add that new variable. Let's say const. Then I paste the thing that I've copied. I think I'm writing it twice. I don't have to write it twice and write it once. So I'll say document. I'll use get element by ID because it's an ID, and I'll paste that ID there. Now since I have that, I can add the event listener, and now you're listening for the click event because someone has to click that button for it to start recording. So I'll listen for the click event. So I'll say record button dot. Let me just put it. You can just put it anywhere. I'll put it below the volume. So I'll say record button dot add event listener and listen for the click event. And with that, if that button is clicked, we'll call this function called start recording. And that function is not created yet, so I'll create it here. I'll say const start recording is equals to an arrow function of that Then, as I have told you earlier, what this start recording will do, it will save the elements into an array. I think that is what we do. So first we'll have to create that array. So here in variable that creates that array. Where is it? In variable, I'll create my array. I'll call it a recorded sequence. I'll say let recorded sequence. Recorded sequence. Initially it will be an empty array. So every time someone does some recording, we'll save that key to that array. So you can see this handle key press is done that keeps track of the keys that have been clicked. So for us to know which key has to be added, you have to add that here. So that you can know that someone is using so that you can know someone is recording, I'll add a boolean here. I'll say I'll call it is recording. Let me just call it a simple name like is recording. What should we call is if someone is recording, you want this value to be true. So by default, you want it to be false. So by default, someone is not recording. But when someone clicks that record button and turn this is recording to true. So I'll just copy this. And I'll say here, where is it? Here in start recording, I'll say when someone clicks this record button, it will call this start recording function. And when this start recording function is called, and to enable this, and this is recording to be true. So now the is recording will be true. And if is recording is true, we can want to add the buttons that have been clicked this array. So which button is being clicked, we don't know. So first I can create that condition here. I can say if someone is recording, so I can say if it's recording. If it's recording, what we want to do, we want to push the keys that are being clicked in this array. So I'll say recorded sequence dot push. And what to push, I'll push two things. One is the key. So you know that for an object, so I'm pushing an object, this is an object. So I'll push an object with the key of key and the value of key. Then the other thing that I'll push is the time. So that, because I want to push the time, because you have seen that sometimes the audio does not play till the end. So it plays till somewhere. So where it has reached, you want to get that time. And if you look at this event, if you log it, there's a property called timestamp. That is the one that uses timestamp. You can log it and see that property is there. Timestamp. So yeah. So if someone is recording, and to push the things that have been recorded in this array. So but instead of saying key, if you learned ES6, instead of duplicating, I can just remove that and say just key, and it will be fine. So yeah, that is fine. So that you can know that its recording is working. Maybe I can log this recorded sequence, or maybe I can log this recorded sequence. I can log it here. Let me log the recorded sequence. So you have seen by default the recorded sequence is an empty array. But when after I enable the recording and I click some buttons, it will not be an empty array, because we'll be pushing the things that you have clicked. So let us go to the browser and confirm if our recording is working. So if you go to the browser, you can open the developer options and go to the console. So while you're in the console, you can just click any elements, any key. So you can see currently they're logging an empty array. This the recorded sequence is an empty array because you are loading the recorded sequence. It's an empty array because you have not yet enabled the recording. So that means by default it will not record anything until we click this button. So once I click that button and I click some elements, so you can see now this our recorded sequence has some data. It has this key of 83 and time of that. So it decodes it has the key and the time that key was played, and this time is in milliseconds. So that can prove that our recording is working. Yeah, so you can go to the next task. The next task is to clear the recording. So you can focus on this clearing the recording. So let's go and do that. So since you are saving the recording into an array, so if you want to clear the recording, It's just simple. You can just set an array to an empty array again. That way you'll have cleared the recording. So first let us get this icon here, this button. It's called clear button. We'll get it from the DOM. So I'll save it here. Say const clear button is equals to document. Let's get element by ID. And I'm getting that clear button. Then just like the rest, we'll add the event listener of click. So I'll duplicate this one, but instead of using the record button, I'll use it's called clear button here, clear button. We just paste here clear button. So when this is called, I'll call a function called clear recording, and the function is not yet there, so I'll create it here. Say const clear recording is equals to an arrow function. So what this will do, it's just simple, just set the recorded sequence back to an empty array, just like that. And to prove it has worked, you can just log the recorded sequence, but this is just straightforward, but you can just log just to prove it was working. So you can log the recorded sequence like that. So let's go to the browser and confirm that our clear recording is working. Let me first refresh this one. So now if I click, you can see it's not recording yet, so it's empty array. So if I click this one for recording, then I start pressing the keys, you can see they're recording, they're being stored there. We saw that in some time ago. So now if I place this clear, you can see it goes back to an empty array. That means that our clear recording is working. So the last thing that we'll do is to make this play recording to work. So if someone has recorded something, and if they click play, want it to work. So that will be our last functionality. Let's go and do it. So to make the recordings to play, first you have to get the play button. Where is it? This play button. You have to get that, and I'll save it as a variable here on top here, where I have my variables here after the clear button, or I'll save it before anywhere. Then I'll use the document.get element by ID, and I'll paste its ID there like that. So now I have my play button. So I'll add the event listener there. So I'll just copy this event listener for the record. I'll duplicate it below there. Then I change this to play button.add event listener click. Then we'll call a function called play recording, and that function is yet to be created, and we're going to create it now. So that play recording will work similar to this. It's not there yet, so let me just create it first. Let me create it here so that it can flow. You start recording, then you play, then you clear. Makes sense to me that way. So I'll call it here const play record play. It's called what? Play recording here. It goes to an arrow function like that. So what this will do, it will work almost similar to this handle key press. The way we played, where is it? The way we played this audio here, all this logic will be the same. But let us take it step by step. Where is it? So here, so since my recording are saved in this array, this array is called, what is it called? It's called recorded sequence. Since all my recordings are saved in the recorded sequence, I can loop through that array and play each audio. So yeah, so I can loop. Let me just use the old for loop. So I'll use the for loop to loop. So I'll say const record of recorded sequence. So for each record of the recorded sequence, I want to do something. So I'll just do the same thing that I did here. So allow me to copy this code. Till here until there. All that code I'll just copy it and I'll paste it here. So it's the same thing, but now we don't have access to this key, because this key, as you saw up there, we are getting it from the event e.key code. But now we don't have access to that event. So we'll get this key from the from this array, because keep in mind that in that array we pushed the key. Where is it? We pushed this key, so this is the key that we'll be using. So to access that key, we'll say, where is it? Where is my function? We'll say record dot key. I think it's clear. Also here it will be record dot key, because each record has a key property. So we'll access the record dot key to get the audio, and also here we'll get record dot key to get the key element. And just as usual, we'll just play the, if the audio is not there, we'll return, and if it's there, because this, you have to put this line, because maybe someone during the time of recording, maybe the audio was there when someone was recording, then maybe it will be deleted later, then you cannot play something that is not there. So you also have to check if the audio is there. But if it's not there, will not return, will not end the function. You want to continue the recording, because this one we are playing a recording, so you don't want to end the function. If it's not there, we'll just skip it. This one, let me just add, this just skips the audio. So if the audio is not there in term of when it is being played, it will skip, because you cannot end the function, because it's an array. Maybe there's another audio there's another audio next, so you cannot skip it. You cannot end the function there, so you just skip it. I think that one is clear. Then as usual, current time will be 0. We talked about this to set the audio at the beginning. Then we'll play, and we'll have this class of playing. But now we want, now it works fine, but you want to remove this class later. So you can go and confirm. No, let us not go to the browser. Let us finish writing this function, then we go to the browser. So since this has been added, we want to remove this class. So initially we use this method. It's called, where is it? This remove transition. We remove this method. But now, since this was listening for the transition event, we cannot reuse that method. So I come up with a new way of removing that. I used the promises. So you can create a new promise. So I'll say new promise. But we'll have to use asynchronous JavaScript. This one has to be awaited. So this function has to be an async function for you to use this await keyword here. Await. So I'll create a new promise there. Then, like the premise has resolve and reject. So I'll check if it is resolved. So I'll say resolve. If it has resolved, we'll do what? We'll do something, and that something is this one here. We'll check if the audio has ended. We'll say audio ended. Audio has this property called on ended. Audio have this property called on ended. So if it has ended, we'll attach a callback function there, like that. We'll attach a callback function, and in this callback function, we'll remove the playing class. So I'll say key element. So you have access to this element. You have access to that. So I'll say key element dot class list dot remove. And what are you removing this class called playing. Then after that, we'll call this resolve. So yeah, I think that one is clear, but I'll just repeat. So in this line here, first I'll start with this line. First thing, you are looping through the audio elements, because we have said that the audio elements, the recorded sequence is stored in an array. So we can iterate through each recorded key press. That is what we did. We used the for loop here. So the next thing that we did, we got the audio. We got the corresponding audio to that key press, and we use this record dot key. And this we already talked about it. Then also we got the element. We got the element corresponding to the recorded key press. This we already talked about it. Then we checked if there is no corresponding audio element, because keep in mind that someone might come here and delete this sound. So you have to check if that sound is there. Maybe in the time of playing, in the time of recording, it was there. Then maybe after recording, someone deleted this sound. So you have to check if the sound is still there. And if it's not there, initially we said if it's not there, return. But now you cannot say return, because return will end the function. But we don't want to stop the function here. So say if it's not there, we skip and go to the next audio. That is what we're doing in this line. If the audio is not there, we skip it and go to the next. Then as usual, we'll reset the time back to the beginning as usual. Then we'll play the audio. I think that is clear. Then after that, we'll add this class of playing to that element that is currently playing. Then we want to remove this class after it has played. So we'll create a new promise and we'll check if the audio has ended. So if the audio has ended, we'll remove this class, then we'll resolve our promise. I think that is clear. So let's go to the browser and see if that is working. Let me save this code and go to the browser. So I've got the browser and click button. And they're just playing fine. And if I click the record button, then I click this one. So I've clicked 3 buttons. So now if I play them, we'll test if the play is working. So if I play them, you can see the 3 buttons that I clicked are the ones that have been played. So you can see the play button is working. So I think that is the end of the video. You can also test this clear button. So if I clear, then I click play again, you can see the play is not playing because the recorded has been cleared. So the app is just working fine. So I'll give you a task. So the first task is to improve this user experience, because currently when someone clicks record, I'm not sure whether it's recording or not until I go to the console and confirm whether the array is empty or not. But that's not good user experience. So the first assignment that I'll give you is that when someone clicks record, do something so that someone can know they are recording. Maybe you can change the color of this button or do something else so that someone can know that they are recording. The next thing, when someone clears, you can prompt them maybe an alert to ask them if they want to clear the recording or not. So that is another thing that you might do. Then I noticed that this play is not working well, we can do that as an assignment. Then if I play, you can see I pressed it continuously, but it's playing slowly. Like if I record that, let me record it. Then if I play, you can see it's playing slowly. But it's because thinking out of noise. Yeah, it is playing that way because I forgot to keep track of the recorded time. So maybe you can do that as an assignment. If you remember, when you pushed the recording, we pushed the key and the recorded time. But during when you're writing the play recording function, we didn't keep track of the recorded time. So when you're playing the audio, I want you to keep track of the recorded time so that when someone clicks, it should also play that intensity. So that's another task. So you can finish those tasks and you can host your site and submit the hosted link in the comments, and you can see if you did it fine. So that is it for this app, guys. See you in the next app. Peace out.